Once upon a time, two boys grew up playing hockey in the village of Terrace, British Columbia. One of them went on to play in the National Hockey League. The other became a comedian. Now, one flies planes and coaches youth hockey. The other is still a comedian and owns newsstands. This is their podcast, Enjoying Orange Slices with Jeff and Ian.
Good afternoon, good morning, good day, and good night, Jeff. My name is Ian Bagg. The show is Enjoying Orange Slices with Jeff and Ian. It is February the 21st, 2023. Things are getting crazy in the NHL. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good, Lord Bagg. That was quite the intro.
Good.
Yeah, things are kind of getting crazy, right? We're down to like last 25 or so games.
Yeah.
Some teams are absolutely, and fan bases are absolutely panicking, and other teams are just kind of going about their business. So it's a fun time of the year, right? Starting to tighten up in a lot of playoff races, mostly in the West. I think the East has their teams that'll probably make it, but the wild card is kind of a little bit in flux in the East. So kind of fun.
You think this team's going to make it? Oh,
I can't see which team.
that team right there. Can you see that team?
I don't know if that team's going to make it. I'd like to see them make it. I do believe that, and that's the massive, the Seattle Kraken, the massive Kraken. Not sure how
massive crack.
The crack. They never called them the crackheads, right? Like the cheeseheads in Green Bay and the crackheads. I get it, but anyways, yeah, I guess you can't say that. But Seattle, it's a team you really want to pull for. They're exciting to watch. I do think there's a real possibility that Calgary, Edmonton, Vegas, Seattle, and LA all get in and scoop up the two wild card spots on the way.
Who would that leave out that we'd be shocked by? Who would that leave out?
Well, that'd leave out Minnesota and Nashville, most likely.
I could see Nashville not making it.
Yeah.
And I could see Minnesota is going to be, it's going to be right down to the wire because they are up and they are down. They are up and they are down.
Well, the problem in Minnesota is you only have so much, like everyone else has 82 million in cap space. Minnesota only plays with 71 because they bought out Parise and Suter.
How many years does that last for?
I think it's another year or two. So I think they have to live with this for a little while longer. So the fact they're as competitive as they are and they don't score much, is a real testament to what they're doing there. Billy Guerin and Coach Dean Evison and the rest of the coaching staff, and the players. I mean, they're doing what they can to stay involved in the race. They don't score a lot of goals and they're greasy, right? So if they get in, they're gonna make you pay the price to play them. So I don't think anybody'd be really excited about playing Minnesota in the first round.
It's interesting there. What they have to do is be able to get through that $10 million a year that they're losing without panicking as soon as they get it back and getting themselves back into the same problem again. Because that's what they did before. So they were really competitive before, and then they decided to bring on those guys.
Well, I think what it speaks to, not only in Minnesota, but in other places, is they need the salary cap to go up. And so the NHL is going to say to them, well, hey, we can help you. Not only can we increase it through, we've got more revenue coming in, but we got a great idea. We're going to go from 82 to 84 games, and you're going to get a small percentage increase through that as well. So, I think what's going on is all these players, like you saw it with the Islanders, they traded for Bo Horvath, 8 years, $8.5 million extension. Boldy in Minnesota, they have cap problems, but he's a young guy they're really high on. They just signed him to a big extension. So, you've got a few players that make these teams really top heavy. And the one team that comes to mind right away, obviously, is Edmonton. But if you want to keep these guys now, someone is willing to pay them for long-term and big money. So you got to kind of step up to the plate and do the same thing. I mean, Vegas has Mark Stone at 9.5, Eichel at 10. Those guys, they make a lot of cash, right? And so if you only have 81 million, and
it's interesting because I think they sometimes they take hockey It's very rare that one guy can change a whole team. Whereas in basketball, if you have one guy, you're a great team. If you have two guys, you're a playoff team. If you have three guys, you're a championship team. Where hockey has to get that mindset out of them, where they maybe share a little bit more of the money all the way down to have a better team. So
Yeah, you got to get guys to be take the hometown discount. So they say
Boston,
what?
Boston,
Boston, yeah,
they've been able to
Boston.
trick guys into it.
Yeah, they've been able to take these superstars and Bergeron and Marchand and these guys and get them play for less than maybe they could get in the open market. But the big test in Boston is going to be this summer with Pastrnak. The way that guy plays, he's at least a $10 million a year guy, right? So that kind of blows up everything they've always kind of done there. But he's a big part
But
of
is
that.
he a $10 million guy because the league has created that $10 million instead of it being at about seven? Having more quality talent and having the highest paid guy be at seven.
Yeah, you have guys say, look at McDavid. What's he at 13? And then now next year, McKinnon's going to get up there. Tavares is at 11. Matthews up there, right? He's over 10. Marner's right up there. And so, I mean, I think they just look and they do a comparable. And that's why you always want your best players to go for the most money if you're a player, right? So you can sit there and go, well, look at Connor McDavid is making 13 or 14. I'm a pretty good bargain at 5 or 6 million, like that's kind of how this is.
That's what I'm saying. Like if they've created this their own problem, right? So,
and that's why you keep needing to drive revenue. And so you want them to add extra games. That's what the league wants to do so they can balance the schedule, right? But I don't know what the answer there is. I think the teams that can keep a lid on their salary cap, like Colorado did, and they win the Stanley Cup with their really, really good players. And then Tampa Bay was able to work the cap, right, through long-term injury and other stuff like that. But they were able to, manage the cap so they could win. So who's the team this year? And like Boston's right there. What do they want to add? And whoever they add, does that person stay on the books for next year? Because they got to look and basically take somewhere around 10 million and get that ready to go to Pastrnak if he's going to stay. I don't know. Maybe he'll do it for 8, but somewhere between
they got to get him
12 is what Pasternak's going to want, right? So
especially if they get really, really deep into the playoffs, right?
Oh, 100%. And you watch him; he's part of their. Every night they win, basically, and every night he's a big part of the show. So, and he's really good for the league. I love watching him, and he's a real character. So that's the kind of people, you want happy, and you want to see him do well. And guys made the Bruins a lot of money. Nice to see him get paid, even though he's already getting a decent wage. Now he's really going to get paid.
Yeah, exactly. We want to talk about what's going on with the trades in the NHL. So let's start with the big trade was Horvat, and then the next one is Riley going to Riley. It was Riley.
O'Reilly.
Yeah.
O'Reilly.
Yeah, O'Reilly, not Riley. O'Reilly going to Toronto. Who do you think are the biggest rental trades coming?
Well, you got to look at Patrick Kane as being one of them, but he's been in Chicago so long. I'm not sure that he would want to go and sign an extension somewhere. And what does that look like? He still has to decide, I think, if he's going to leave, right? So my guess with Patrick Kane is Chicago gets what they get for him, but if he signs an extension with the team he's going to, they might be able to get a little bit more, right? So there's a little bit more certainty there. Timo Meier is a big one for me. What's he going to look like? Where's he go, right?
Is he just a rental, do you think?
Well, it depends. I don't know of a team that would really, I don't know of a team like that would trade for him. And I mean, he gets qualified at 10 million next year. So if you trade for him, he's a restricted free agent, I believe, and his number is 10 million. So if you trade for him and you can't do a long-term extension and you do have cap room, then you could put him in there at 10 million for a year. But, I look at guys like a Luke Shen, Taves before he got Jonathan Taves before he got hurt. Guys like that are out there.
He's out for sure for a while.
Yeah, he's out. He's got long-term COVID. But I watch Arizona all the time. Like they've got some really interesting pieces there. Nick Bukestad, this big center iceman, is having a great year. They've got Zach Cassian, who isn't really part of the program down there as much anymore. But he's a big, strong guy, can really skate, give you some grit, right? And they got some other guys there that would really, if they could fetch some assets back, I think Arizona would be more than happy to kind of move them on. And Columbus, they're holding guys out in Columbus right now. They're holding guys out in Arizona.
How do you feel about that?
I don't like it. I mean, I think it's a bad look for the league. You're giving the other team a distinct advantage when they play you. Because I'll give you an example in Arizona. Everyone's like, oh, they're going for Connor Bedard anyways. But when Chychrun plays, he plays between 22 and 24 minutes a night. So now not only has he not played for a week or two, right? The teams that now get Arizona on the schedule, and Arizona plays hard, but there's a difference when you plug him in there versus, say, someone from the American League or your seventh defenseman. And so there's an advantage for the teams they're playing right now. Columbus never took advantage of that the other night playing them.
But aren't you asking for an injury by a guy that plays 24, 25 minutes a night, holding him out a couple games, then putting him back in? You're asking for more of injury rather than him playing. Yeah,
you're looking at, and these guys, some of these guys are going to look at 2-3 weeks of sitting out. If, there's a Garikov or Grab in Columbus, a big Russian defenseman. I'm not saying his name properly. And there's
good luck. I'm not going to say it.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm just number 4 is his number. But and then you've got when did the Sharks go? Well, we need to hold Timo Meier out, or maybe that's bad. It's bad. And there's another problem with this. Now betting is a part of the NHL, and you are now skewing, that part of it as well, because you're not icing the best team that you can ice because you don't want to injure the player. Well, I just think it really muddies the waters. I don't like it.
You got to risk it. You got to risk it. If he's part of your team, he's part of your team. You got to risk him getting hurt and playing for you. How
about the team that trades for these guys? It's been sitting out for 3 weeks and all of a sudden throws them in a game.
Right.
I know these guys are in shape and they're athletes.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're not working, you're not working, right?
Exactly. It's like, take 3 weeks off from driving your car. When you get back in the car right away, you got to kind of get everything all set up. Well, you know what? These guys are off the ice for 3 weeks and the game's moving really fast. I think it's a bad look for the league and they need to address it.
It's a bad look for the league and it's bad for the players. And boy, there's a lot of money out there. Holy man, there's a lot of money out there. Do you think, where do you think Chychrun goes? Or does it?
I would, in the real world, I'd love to have seen him stick in Arizona and see if they can.
I love that you're one of the 5,000 people that watch Arizona.
Yeah, I do. I watch Arizona all the time. I enjoy watching them, especially when they're at home. And of course, we're out west, right? So we're catching the later games, and they were the last game the other night against Columbus. And I don't know how they're going to dig out of that hole, but when you're trading a 24-year-old defenseman, that's tough. I would love to see him. You got Keller there. They got Schmaltz there. Barrett Hayden is this young guy that they draft. They've got some really good young guys there. And of course, Chychrun and their goaltending's been good. But I know they're still down near the bottom. I get it. But,
you know the problem. If you go to business with the Arizona, they haven't even had that meeting to say, absolutely, they're going to build a building yet.
Yeah. They're waiting for that for May. Gary talked about it last week, though, when we had Gary Lawless on. Gary said they've been really, Bettman's been really patient with what's been going on down there.
I don't care.
I agree, but
that's too much uncertainty. That's too much uncertainty.
I'll leave it at this. I don't know where Chychrun's going to go. You hear Boston, you hear, maybe Edmonton. Buffalo, maybe, right? Buffalo would have some really good pieces to be able to get back to Arizona. But the problem is Now we're in a league where we're trading away 24-year-old defensemen. I mean, this guy isn't going to hit his prime, and he's awesome. I love watching him. I think he's a great player. He isn't going to hit his prime for probably another 2, 3, 4 years as a defenseman when he gets 27, 28. And so what are you building, right? We're going to, circle back and go draft a 17-year-old kid, and that's not going to probably play for you for 3, 4 years minimum.
That's the Arizona way.
Yeah. Constant rebuild, right? And it's too bad.
There's the teams that won't rebuild, right? They're like, oh, we'll just take a couple pieces off, and that we can't do a rebuild. And then there's Arizona that is always rebuilding. What we do is we build the foundation for the basement every year, and then we tear it down. We just put a basement. It's stupid.
And we go build a basement for the shed.
Yeah, for the shed that we put on top of it.
Then we build a tunnel from the basement of the house to the basement of the shed. Yeah. Hey, you know what? I'd love to get on one day, and I love listening to Arizona broadcasts. I'd love to get Tyson Nash on one day. So we gotta see if we can get him on. He's always a lot of fun. He's been a part of that for a long time in Arizona, and I'd really be interested to get his take on what he sees and where he thinks the path forward leads. Because it is entertaining. I always laugh. I always enjoy watching those guys. But anyways, moving on from Arizona.
And by the way, this is the time I need to stop and say, today it's just going to be Jeff and I. I should have said that at the beginning. We don't have a guest today. We have guests coming up next week and the week after that, and then back to no guest. And then you know how it is. But we also want to mention that this is brought to you by Super Deeker, this conversation. Super Deeker, take yourself from Arizona to Las Vegas. Build yourself a real building with Super Deeker. SuperDeeker.com. Use the old slices code. Get yourself a discount. It's tough. I had to get that in there.
You got that in there good this week. I think, if you look out at what's going on in the league, we'll go talk about the wild card for a minute. We'll start in the East because a couple teams I watched a lot recently as well and they're sneaking up is Detroit and Buffalo. And Buffalo came out of the break. It didn't look great, but then they kind of got it going. They have games in hand. So you kind of got a little bit.
A lot right about now. Games in hand means so much.
Well, it does if you win them. But, I myself would rather be in front of you and give you the games in hand because you're going to have to stuff, 10 gallons of crap into a 5-gallon bucket to finish because you're going to be playing way more hockey down the stretch than the other guys are. So
depending on who you're playing, like if you're getting Arizona and then why am I blanking? Anaheim, the Ohio team that's in the West. That might help you out. But I do. Detroit has definitely changed their outlook on whether they're selling or buying, right?
They put Stevie in a tough spot just because of they're knocking on the door, and of course they're going to get if they get in, they're going to get either Carolina or Boston, I'm assuming, right? Because they're going to be a wild card. But still, the Red Wings back in the playoffs, original 6 team, right? I love to see it. I don't know if it puts Stevie in that much of a tough position because Stevie is really focused. Like there's not a lot of gray in Stevie's life. He looks at things black or white. He doesn't look and go, well, we do this or that. He's got a goal. They've developed some really good young guys. They play with a lot of pace. Their goaltending is much better than it has been, and they're on the rise. Buffalo's another team. So it would be great to see Buffalo and Detroit, and let's not forget about Ottawa, all kind of make a run for the roses here at the end while they try and chase down Pittsburgh, Washington, and the Islanders. So the top part of those divisions is set, I think, but the bottom, the 2 wild cards, I think, are wide open.
Right. Ottawa's the same as Detroit. They've turned their game around and made it tough for them in Ottawa.
And a rising tide lifts all boats, and that's what they got going on in those cities. Like there's a lot of energy that hasn't been there, and a lot of adrenaline pushing those teams that it hasn't been there in years. So look out for those guys. You just got to get in. You never know. There's always upsets in the playoffs, but
just got to get in.
I'd love to see Detroit, Ottawa, or Buffalo get in. I mean, we want to see our boy Hoods get in, and the Island. Just we always pull for him, and I'd like to see him get in, and the Islanders, especially with Horvat, such a good guy, and was so good for Vancouver for so long. I'd love to see him get a little taste of being a big wheel out in the East Coast there. But we'll see what happens out there.
It's going to be interesting. Somebody's going to be disappointed, and there's going to be disappointed. I tell you, who's not going to be disappointed? Who knows they're not making the playoffs right now? Is St. Louis.
Yeah, I don't know. Did we talk about that trade?
We haven't talked. We brought it up, but we haven't talked about O'Reilly Auto Parts. He's in Toronto. Who's the kid that went with him? He went with somebody else.
Achari went with them, and then they got a kid that's in the Western Hockey League as well.
I think Achari is more important than what people are saying.
Well, he's got some grit to his game. He played with the Bruins for a long time. Then he went down to Florida, and he gives them kind of a responsible centerman that can kill penalties, and he's tough to play against. So Toronto needs more of that. I think O'Reilly's tough to play against in a different kind of way. It's not as physical. He's just so cagey. He's a lot like Mark Stone. He's always in a spot where you don't think he's going to be. Bats pucks down. He wins a lot of draws. So Toronto, what did they give up? Everyone's like, oh, they give up too much. Well, here's how you're going to judge that trade, Toronto and St. Louis. If Toronto makes it to the second round, it was a steal. If they don't make it to the second round, you can go and knock on them for ruining their future. But they got to find a way, especially the way the playoffs are set up. It's almost a certainty they're going to play Tampa Bay. They got to find a way to get by Tampa Bay because Tampa Bay is not done. Yeah.
They got it. Do you also think that was kind of a move from a general manager saying, if I don't make a move, I'm not going to be back here next year no matter what, so I might as well make a move?
True. I think Dubas is, he's in the hot seat in Toronto. He's a young guy.
Last
he
year, right?
What's that?
His last year of his deal.
Yeah, his last year. But I think he would have had to get the sign off from Brendan Shanahan and the powers that be there in Toronto because
they'll just look away if it goes bad. Brendan, I wasn't even in the room. I didn't know what happened. I was out on vacation. Next thing I know, I came back. O'Reilly's in the room. That is not how Brendan Shanahan talks, but
yeah, I was almost like your Pearl voice. I like that. I was like, hey, here's the deal with Toronto. Okay, well, I think, and I might be totally off base on this, but one of the reasons that I think that they're going to mortgage their future is because if this doesn't work out, then they got Matthews is coming up in a year or two. I don't know how much longer Tavares is there, and I'm sure all those guys have no trades. But I think what they're sitting there going is like, hey, listen, if we're going into a rebuild or we don't have anything coming and we're just going to be average, those guys, most likely they'll try and move them or ask them if they want to move. And so if you start moving some of these guys out down the road, because I personally think that Matthews is going to sign somewhere else. And if they get a new building in
start with an A and ends with a Zona.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, where he wants to go. Maybe, I don't know about Marner or Tavares. I know they're local boys, but Morgan Riley is another one. They're going to have some guys that if this apple cart gets turned over and they don't get through the first round, looking forward, not in this summer, but looking forward, they do have these guys that would bring back huge assets. And I think that might be part of the thinking. I know they have no trades, all of them, but it's like you see guys wave.
I think it was a good move. I think they had to add some sort of grit that they've added. They still need something else or something else missing. Maybe somebody bigger on the blue line. I don't know.
Well, everybody needs a big D man, but think of it this way: between Toronto and Tampa.
If you were going to add something to Toronto, what would you add?
Well, I like what they did there. Obviously, I'd like to add a defenseman, right? I'd like a big guy like Luke Schenn, Josh Brown in Arizona, Luke Schenn up in that kind of guy that just is going to make you pay the price. He's going to give you 12 to 15 minutes a night. Schenn plays too much in Vancouver right now because of what's going on, but I absolutely love the guy. And Josh Brown, big, strong guy that's going to,
the tall guy in Vancouver too.
Myers, yeah. I mean, Myers is a guy that obviously can bring some some nastiness because he's so big and
Expensive.
$6 million a year. So I don't know.
Oh, so cheap.
But Vancouver might have to hold some of that money. But I guess
Right.
where I'm going with it is Toronto. Here's the way I look at Tampa. Tampa is not the fastest team in the league, but they're savvy. They're the savviest.
They're going to be
The
right
grittiest.
beside you right until the end. They're gonna be
They and they'll stay in the fight as long as they need to stay in. I mean,
Mhm.
watch them play. It's amazing. Toronto is one of the fastest teams in the league, right? And Toronto was right on the verge of taking Tampa out last year. But I think what they need by adding a guy like Achari, who gives you a little bit more grit, a guy like O'Reilly who can play that real savvy game. Now, now you're a little quicker, but you've
Right.
added some of the ingredients that makes Tampa Bay so successful.
You need to be able to tire them out. You got your quickness, but what do you got that's going to like drain their energy? So yeah, I do think you're right on that.
And the only other thing is Tampa Bay, if you're going to put money on who's going to win that series tomorrow, I would imagine you probably get a 60-40, 70-30 split of people taking Tampa, and it would probably come down to the goaltending and Vasilevsky in the end. So your goaltending,
You got to run them right that first day. You got to pick somebody.
yeah. Anyways, we kind of went on about those.
I want to talk about
like-
I want to talk about Edmonton, and I want to talk about them trading for a defenseman that's worth a lot of money. Is there any possible math that can work for him to get there?
If he had a couple years, if he had 1 year left, I think so. Two
Right.
would be a stretch. I think he's got 3 or 4, right?
A 4.
So and again, this guy is like Carlson is about EK65 back, and it's such an elite level.
I guess I should mention the name. Eric Carlson is who we're talking about.
Yeah.
San
So-
Jose Sharks.
But the guys are trying to give up for him. It's like, oh yeah, well, we'll just trade Barry and Puljujärvi and Fogel and someone else we don't want, right? And
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, you got to trade somebody they want.
yeah, like Barry's been a really good defenseman in the league for a long time, but San Jose doesn't want a guy in his late 20s.
Right.
Fogel is a guy that I think they would be interested in because he's picked up his game. He's got a lot of pace and he's starting to get it going. So that might be a guy. But Puljujärvi, all they do is just rag on him the whole time in Edmonton, and the rest of the league sees what's going on.
Yeah.
The guy's just they're basically going to have to give him away, right? So he's not. These aren't. Guys,
He's not going to be in a trade.
No,
That guy's not going to be in a trade. That's going to be in a gift package.
yeah, they're just going to be, and we'll give you Puljujärvi, but
Oh, thank you.
the problem is in Edmonton though is EK65. I mean, they score enough goals. That's the only thing I would say. They need to find a way to keep the puck out of their net. The last 3 games,
Can you imagine that outlet pass with EK? With Carlson just nailing those guys up front. Oh, I would be so scary. That would be actually winning with all. They would probably score 11 goals a game with him.
yeah, they could. I mean, think about this.
And I'm not even an Edmonton fan. I was just like, oh, that would be amazing.
Oh, I'd love to see it. And you know what? Basically, you're just going so hard on offense. You're planning on never being in your zone, right?
Yeah.
And something about Carlson that people might or might not realize.
Finally, Jack is back because he never gets any shots.
Yeah, he's like, hey, 14 shots a game because they get the puck the
Ooh.
whole time. But
Do they need a goalie in San Jose? Do you think they'd trade?
I don't know. They to me, like,
They need
guy like
everything.
Campbell is a guy that you're going to want to try and win with now. Like, if that's Edmonton brought Campbell in to win now. They didn't
Mhm.
bring Campbell in to move him to San Jose or someone else. But you think about it, just get back to E65 for a second. There's only been 3 defensemen, I think, or 2 other defensemen he score 105 points. I think 5 total defensemen score 100 points in NHL. Bobby Orr and Paul Coffey were the last 2. I think they did like around 105.
Got a lot of Paul Coffey to him.
He's, you know what? He's going to get over 100 points. It's
Crazy.
crazy. My thing with Edmonton,
He's getting over 100 points on a team that is going nowhere, too.
yeah, and he's a plus hockey player, or he was. I don't know what he is now, which is crazy. But to me, Edmonton, they have to decide, like, we got to check better. You know what? They are what they are. They're really they're run and gun, right? So they need to make the game chaotic.
You got to play that game. If that's your game, you got to be the best at that game, right? So
I'm surprised they sent Harney down to actually, because I really liked what he brought to the table. Maybe it was a salary cap thing, or they could only have so many guys up top, and they could send him back down without him having clear waivers, I'm guessing. But I like Harney. It was a big body, simple game. They just need 6 guys back on that blue line in Edmonton. They just play a simple game. Chip it out, chip it in, chip it out, chip it in. Let the speed and the elite forwards that Edmonton has get the puck. And when Edmonton is on their horse and they're going, they just blitz teams. That's what happens.
It's amazing. You can hate them, but you got to respect what they're doing. So yeah, it's crazy.
But yeah, so we'll see what happens. I think Edmonton's going to be the best story in the West, just because they're all so exciting, and they're like,
I think they could be in the final 2 this year. They could take out the Avalanche this year.
Yeah, I mean, I just if they get some stops and they just their D. Just like I said, simple. You don't have to put it tape to tape for Connor McDavid. He's already driving those D back. Just get it off the boards. When the other team's out there against them, they're already panicking, because if you watch a game when he's there live, it's crazy how this guy's so much different than everyone else. But to me, I'd be like, get it out off the glass, boys, and skate onto it, and just pedal to the metal and keep it simple. But Edmonton, that's what makes them so exciting. They don't like to keep it simple. They just want to open it up.
It'd be nice to see them and the LA Kings. I don't know what work
It'll work. You could have any of the teams in the Pacific, and they all made it. You could have any kind of combination of that, because
they could be the final 4. LA, Edmonton.
You know what? That's a good question. I think if all 5 made it, you would have some kind of
chance. But
what? There's it would be interesting how that would work. But I'm sure there's a scenario where you could, if you got all 5 teams in the playoffs, that you could see an arch rival. Like, I mean, if you're a Battle of Alberta fan, you could see Calgary and Edmonton, possibly, the way the wild card shakes out, end up with each other in the conference final, which I don't think you could see that last year. But I might be wrong on that, because there's something that reseats after the first round where you end up sometimes playing someone in your division. So I might be wrong.
All right.
Is
there any other teams you want to talk about before we get going?
I'll just talk about the outdoor game in Carolina really quick.
Outside. Tell us more.
Outside. Just watch that on Saturday. Try and watch Carolina as much as I can. Again, incredible pace. They were all over Washington right from the start. I think they had 65,000 people out to watch the game in Carolina the other night, which is great. They just basically, I used the word earlier, but that's what Carolina does to you too. They just blitz you. They just come so hard at you, but they have a little bit more defense in their game than Edmonton does, a little more defensive minded. But everything, they come in, they rim the puck, and they're going a million miles an hour at you. And so look out for Carolina, because without Boston this year, Carolina would probably be the talk of the league, but they're just going about their business. I think they're only maybe 5-6 points behind Boston in the standings for the whole thing, and they don't get any love. So good for Carolina. Another non-traditional hockey market, outdoor game, 65,000 people, and they built a heck of a team out there. So congrats to them.
Building a game there, that's for sure. If that's 65,000 people showing up to a game, you're building it. And a lot of people complain about the outdoor games, but those put a lot of press out there, and somebody else that doesn't know the game is going to get the information. So,
well, you're on ABC, right? You're on ABC on Saturday night, prime time.
The American Broadcasting System. No, right. Company.
Corporation. Close.
Company.
That'd be ABS, anti-skid braking, isn't it, or something?
ABS, yeah.
Anti-skid braking system or something. But yeah, we kind of went we took the garden hose.
Also, when I eat too much Mexican food, I get the ABS. That's IBS. Irritable. Okay, back to you.
That's what that is. Okay, good. It took me a minute to catch you there.
You're like, what's going on? Sometimes you smile at me and just shake your head and go, you better not get me fired from a job.
I'm not too worried about that recently, but you've been pretty calm.
Recently.
Well, we've had guests on recently, so you know what, the guests have carried the show, and now
I love it.
when you and I get on, though, I start to get a little nervous. I start shaking a little bit. I'm like, okay, what's he gonna say? What's he gonna say? So,
I enjoy having guests, and we've had a lot of guests, and people put out there who you'd like to see on the show, and we can just all we can do is ask. That's how we've gotten our guests so far. So if there's somebody you want to see on the show, let us know.
Yeah.
All right. Is that it?
I think we're done. Why don't we start with the shout outs this week, and I'll see if I can.
Well, first shout out, we got to give a shout out to Heady Gear, headygear.com. Go to your headygear.com, get yourself a backpack, design it yourself, put all your swag on it. Check it out and design your own backpack. And back in the day, a lot of Canadians would sew a Canadian flag on their backpack to let people know they're Canadian. Well, what Hedekin has done is he's taken it so you can put patches on, just stick them on there. So now you can change, say you're in New Zealand and you got a Canadian flag on there, and all of a sudden you want to be New Zealand. Boom, you flip it over there. You got yourself a New Zealand patch, and nobody knows you're from Canada anymore. So go to headygear.com, get yourself a backpack, and surprise the people. Boom.
What's your shout out?
No, that was my advertisement.
Advertisement. We got to get Hetty to we got to get that.
I'm going to send him a message. We need that code. We're doing a lot of advertising. We need that code. You son of a. He's busy. He's busy watching the San Jose Sharks lose. I was in Kentucky this week. I want to give the people of Kentucky a shout out. I sold out 3 out of 5 shows. And people actually showed up on Thursday. So a big shout out to Brian Almy, sending me a message on Saturday night from the Toronto-Montreal game going, "This is shit." Poor guy. He's been excited about that game for so long, and then he just gets a team that they've put on the ice that is just, yeah. And their coach is busy showing them how to win face-offs instead of actually coaching the team. So, yeah. Good luck, Brian. Shout out to the Montreal Canadian fans who know what it's like to be a Vancouver Canucks fan. Over to you.
That's really good that you took till the end of the show to get Vancouver in this week.
But I got it in.
You did. You were able to do it. I think that's 100 and some shows in a row. A shout out to all the people in Lexington and all their great fences out there. Are those not the best fences in the world?
Such good fence.
I mean, the whole thing is one big fence, horse fences. It's beautiful in Lexington. Yeah,
so
I
much
get a
money.
shout out. You know who I'm going to shout out to? Our old friend Kenny Daniels this week. So I try and watch the Wings as much as I can, but when they roll through the West, I can watch them. I put them on. I love watching them. So Kenny Daniels, still such a great call. Love listening to him. So our old friend of the show and Detroit play-by-play broadcaster Kenny Daniels, a shout out to him. And then another thing, a little shout out to all you people that live and listen to us.
Nothing for Mick.
Dogs had enough of me. Yeah, well, Mick doesn't travel out west.
Oh, he doesn't?
I love Mick. We got to get Mick on too. Mickey Redmond, one of the greatest people that I ever met in the game. Then one last quick PSA, public service announcement. If you're in the Southern Nevada area or anywhere on the West Coast, hunker down, because she's going to get, like 2 weeks ago, or last week with Gary, it was blowing 60 miles an hour. Tonight, it's going to blow 70 miles an hour around here. So I'm like, hunker down. Don't put your garbage cans out and pick up your lawn furniture, because it'll be gone if you don't.
I haven't been on a plane this year that hasn't just been tossed around like it's crazy. I'm like, oh, hey, I don't know if this guy knows what's going on up there.
My favorite part is like, what's the pilot doing? It's like, here's what the pilot's doing. He's watching or she is watching the autopilot. That's it. Unless you're just taking off or you're landing, that autopilot's going to be on. So as you're cruising at 35,000 feet, they're not up there hand flying it. No way.
I like when they say, and we're just going to try to find you some smooth air out there. And the company's looking for some smooth air out there. And the company looking for some smooth air. I'm like, you're not looking for any smooth air. You're coming for a pee. I see that blocking of the cockpit. I know what you're up to.
Yeah, they're just up there trying to get another coffee. But it's funny. People might or might not know this. They might or might not care. But the air traffic control and all of the pilots are constantly. How's the ride? How's the ride? You check in with the next controller. How's the ride? How's the ride? That's all that gets talked about up there. Everybody wants to know how the ride is the whole way across. It's really important, obviously, when you start coming out west towards the Rockies, because you can absolutely get you can get your head kicked in over the Rockies. It's bad. But like look at Hawaii. We talked to Busky out over the middle Pacific, no mountains around for thousands of miles, and you're getting your butt kicked. So you just don't know. But for those of you that are out there, they're not flying it at 35,000 feet. The autopilot is, and everyone asks about the ride. And hey, one last thing before I go, I put the glasses on this week so I could get all kinds of glare for Terry Meyer, because she's like, "Oh, I like it if you wear the glasses." So Terry, this is for you this week.
I like when your eyes are bigger.
Yeah. I just had them dilated this morning, so maybe that's a problem. All right.
You can't see a thing. All right. Loved all.
Loved all.